Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. I'm Kayla and it's time to crack into a good book. So today's video is going to be about the August releases that I'm very excited about. I think I have 20 to talk to you about today. Of course, there are much more than that actually coming out, so I'll leave all of the books that I'm, also considering listed in the description below. I've also read quite a few August arcs, but I'm not going to talk about all of them today. I have, reviewed several of them, so I'll also leave those linked in the description below so you can check them out. So for the August arcs that I've already read, we've got Dark Roads by Chevy Stevens, which is an adult thriller. There's The Dead in the Dark by Courtney Gould, which is like YA horror. We've got So We Meet Again by Suzanne Park, which is adult romance / general fiction. I haven't actually reviewed this quite yet, but that'll be in my next weekly update. There's The Perfect Family by Robin Harding, which is an adult thriller, and then there's My Heart is a Chainsaw by Stephen Graham Jones, which is adult horror. So again, all of those will be listed in the description, so you can check those out a little bit more. You can go ahead and jump right into the other books that I'm going to focus on today. Before we get started, leave a book emoji in the comments to let me know that you're here, and like always, we'll move our way, through the month. So we'll start with August 3rd, and the first book I'll talk about is The Godstone by Violette Malan. So this is an adult fantasy book. So this is the start of a new epic fantasy series, evidently. So we have Finra, who has been a working practitioner using the magic of healing since she graduated from the White Court and left the city to live in the outer modes. When one of her patients is summoned to the city to execute the final testament of a distant cousin, she agrees to help him. And I guess this person suspects that the White Court wants to access his cousin's practitioner's vault. And he can't ignore the summons. He knows the vault holds an artifact so dangerous he can't allow it to be freed. So, turns out, there's not a cousin, so Arlen himself is the missing practitioner, and he's some sort of legendary person who is rumored to have made a Godstone with which he once almost destroyed the world. So stealing away this Godstone has left this person powerless and ill, and he needs Finra to help him deal with a possibly sentient artifact before someone else finds and uses it. Along the way, they encounter an old friend who Arlen once betrayed, and convinced that Arlen hasn't changed and intends to use Finra just to recover the Godstone and all of his power, this old friend joins them to keep Finra safe and help her destroy the artifact. So I think this sounds really exciting. And I think what is particularly interesting for me is I always like reading about healers, but also sentient artifacts. That sounds really promising. I think that has come up in a few books that I've read before, and I've really enjoyed that. So I'm excited to see, this take on it. The next book that comes out August 3rd is Shards of Earth by Adrian Tchaikovsky. So this is adult sci-fi. This is a space opera. So we have the war is over. It's heroes forgotten until one chance discovery. So Idris has neither aged nor slept since they remade him in the war, and one of humanity's heroes now scrapes by on a freelance salvage vessel to avoid the attention of greater powers. After Earth was destroyed, mankind created a fighting elite to save their species, enhanced humans such as Idris. In the silence of space, they could communicate mind to mind with the enemy, and then their alien aggressors simply disappeared, and Idris and his kind became obsolete. So 50 years later, he and his crew have discovered something strange abandoned in space, which is clearly the work of the architects. So it's are they returning? And if so, why? So they're hunted by gangsters, cults, and governments. So he and his crew race across the galaxy hunting for answers because, now they possess something of incalculable value and many would kill to obtain it. So this sounds really fun to me. I've read a few books, I think, by Adrian Tchaikovsky so far and have enjoyed them, so this just sounds like a really fun space opera. I tend to enjoy space operas in general, so I'm very excited about that. But what's interesting here is just these architects. That sounds really appealing, and also just generally, enhanced humans. That always is a good recipe for interesting moments. But I think this sounds like a lot of fun, and I think we're gonna have some, fairly high stakes. What is this that has been abandoned in space? I definitely want to find out. So the next book that comes out August 3rd is It's a Shoe Fits by Julie Murphy. So this is adult romance, and I think this is the start of adult retellings of Disney movies, if that's right, if I remember that correctly. But so this I think is about Cinderella. So we have Cindy, who loves shoes. She is a fashion-obsessed plus-size woman, and she can never find designer clothes that work on her body, but a special pair of shoes always fits just right. So she has a shiny new design degree, but no job in sight, so she moves back in with her stepmother, who's the executive producer of the world's biggest dating reality show. So when a contestant on Before Midnight bows out at the last moment, Cindy is thrust into the spotlight. So it's like showcasing her killer shoe collection on network TV seems like a great way to jumpstart her career. And, you know, while she's at it, why not go on a few lavish dates with an eligible suitor? But being the first and only fat contestant on the show turns her into a viral sensation and a body-positive icon overnight. And I guess even harder to believe she can actually see herself falling for this Prince Charming. So to make it to the end, despite the fans, the haters, and a house full of fellow contestants she's not sure she can trust, Cindy will have to take a leap of faith and hope her heels and her heart don't break in the process. So this just sounds like a lot of fun. You know, I'm always a sucker for retellings, and, you know, Cinderella seems like a fun one to take on here. But also I really like, well, one, you know, body positivity, that sounds exciting, and also just like a dating reality TV show sounds like such a fun setting. I think that this will be a really cool way to retell this fairy tale. The next book that comes out August 3rd is Tidepool by Nicole Willson. So this is adult horror, and it is cosmic horror specifically. So in 1913, we have Henry Hamilton, who disappears while on a business trip, and his sister Sorrow won't rest until she finds him. Defying her father's orders to remain at home, she travels to Tidepool, which was the last place he visited. Residents of this small, shabby, oceanside town can't quite meet Sorrow's eyes when she questions them about Henry. When corpses wash up on shore, looking as though they've been torn apart by something not quite human, Sorrow is ready to return to Baltimore and let her father send in the professional detectives. Then she meets Mrs. Ada Oliver, a widow whose black silk dresses and elegant manners set her apart from other Tidepool residents. After a terrifying encounter involving her, Sorrow discovers Tidepool's dark, deadly secret, and the town's denizens, human and otherwise, are hell-bent on making sure she never leaves. This sounds like it could be pretty atmospheric. I will say I don't tend to be a fan of Lovecraftian horror, so I'm, you know, a little bit hesitant about that, but at the same time, I'm like, okay, we've got this oceanside setting, and, you know, I think there's going to be some creatures of the deep, perhaps. I mean, you know, like, whatever eldritch horrors are abounding in the ocean. That just seems so, like, interesting to me, and I think it's going to be really atmospheric and creepy and, like, really perfect for the fall in particular. So, you know, again, despite being kind of iffy on like Lovecraftian horror in general, I still am like very interested in checking this out. And the next book that comes out August 3rd is In My Dreams I Hold a Knife by Ashley Winstead. So this is an adult thriller, and we have 6 friends, 1 college reunion, and 1 unsolved murder. So 10 years after graduation, Jessica has planned her triumphant return to her Southern elite university, down to the envious whispers that are sure to follow in her wake. Everyone is going to see the girl she wants them to see, confident, beautiful, and different. Not the girl she was when she left campus, back when Heather's murder fractured everything, including the tight bond linking the 6 friends she'd been closest to since freshman year. But not everyone is ready to move on. Not everyone left this university 10 years ago, and not everyone can let Heather's murder go unsolved. Someone is determined to trap the real killer to make the guilty pay. When the 6 friends are reunited, they will be forced to confront what happened that night and the year's worth of secrets each of them would do anything to keep hidden. So we've got dual timelines here, this dark campus setting, and a darker look at friendship, love, obsession, and ambition. So this sounds like a lot of fun. I think we've kind of got a little bit of like a closed circle murder mystery, perhaps. I really like this dark academia setting. Of course, I always enjoy a good, you know, murder and trying to solve that. So I think this is a case where dual timelines can work really well, and I am just excited to see who did it. The next book I'll talk about comes out August 5th, and that's The Hand of the Sun King by J.T. Greathouse. So I have actually just read an arc of this over this past weekend and really enjoyed it, so I just wanted to mention it again here. So this is adult fantasy, and we have Win Alder, who is born into 2 worlds. On his father's side, there's this legacy of proud loyalty and service to the godlike emperor, spanning generations, and it's expected that Alder too will follow this tradition by passing the imperial exams, learning the accepted ways of magic, and if he serves with honor, enhancing his family's prominence by rising to take a most powerful position in this empire. But from his mother, he has inherited defiance from the empire, a history of wild gods and magic, unlike anything the imperial sorcerers could yet control. It began when his spirited, rebellious grandmother took Alder into the woods and introduced him to her ways he has never been able to forget. So, on the verge of taking the steps that will forge his path of life, Alder discovers that the conflict between the Empire and the Resistance is only the beginning of the war that will engulf both heaven and earth, gods and man, and he may be the key to final victory for whichever side can claim him as their own. So, this was a really enjoyable book. I think it had elements of, things like the Kingkiller Chronicles or like the Sun Eater series or, and also I think some elements of the Poppy War. All of those books I really like. This had the writing quality that works extremely well for me. We do have this kind of setting of Alder, looking back on his life and kind of recounting his days, but it was just so great. Again, the writing was fantastic. We have all sorts of cool magic and, different types of magic, and it's great to learn more about that, and also just, the different gods that are there. So I really enjoyed this, would definitely recommend it, and, I don't have a review written quite yet, but it'll be in my next weekly update. Now we'll move to August 10th, and the first book I'll talk about here is The Sisters of Reckoning by Charlotte Nicole Davis. So this is the sequel to The Good Luck Girls, which I read, a year or two ago, and really enjoyed. I think it made my favorite, fantasy books of the year. So this is a YA, Wild West type fantasy. So here we have characters who are now across the border, and one character is, remaining back in their country trying to help more girls escape. But news of a new Welcome House opening fills Aster, our main character, with a need to do more than just help individual girls. And an unexpected reunion gives her an idea of how to do it. They have this wildly ambitious plan to free all the Dustbloods who live as prisoners to the Landmasters and debt slavery. So when, our other girls return from this other country, they become the heart of a vibrant group of fearless fighters working to unite the various underclasses and convince them to join in the fight. Along the way, friendships will be forged, lives will be lost, and love will take root, even in the harshest of circumstances, between the most unexpected of lovers. So it's will the Dustbloods finally come into power and freedom, or will the Resistance just open them up to a new sort of danger? So I'm very excited about this. Like I said, I really loved The Good Luck Girls. I really like this Wild West type of atmosphere. I seem to remember there were magical tattoos of a sort, which was really interesting, and I think the bonds between our girls was really great. So I am just super excited to see what happens with our characters next. The next book that comes out August 10th is The Other Me by Sarah Zachrich Jeng. So this is an adult sci-fi thriller type book. So it's her birthday should be like any other night. One minute, Kelly's a free-spirited artist in Chicago going to her best friend's art show. The next, she opens a door and mysteriously emerges in her Michigan hometown. Suddenly, her life is unrecognizable. She's got 12 years of the wrong memories in her head, and she's married to Eric, a man she barely knew in high school. So trying to get back to her old life, her search leads only to more questions. In this life, she loves Eric and wants to trust him, but everything she discovers about him, including a connection to a mysterious tech startup, tells her she shouldn't, and strange things keep happening. The tattoos she had when she was an artist briefly reappear on her skin. She remembers fights with Eric that he says never happened, and her relationship with loved ones, both new and familiar, seem to change without warning. But the closer she gets to putting the pieces together, the more her reality seems to shift. And if she can't figure out what happened on her birthday, the next change could cost her everything. So that sounds just absolutely wild. I really have no idea what's going on here. It seems I don't know if it's alternate universes exactly, but oh boy, I'm curious about all these wrong memories, and I feel like this tech startup probably doesn't bode well, but this sounds so appealing, and I just can't wait to see what all's going on here. The next book that comes out August 10th is Gone for Good by Joanna Schaffhausen. So this is an adult thriller, or mystery thriller, I guess. So we've got the lovelorn killer who murdered 7 women, ritually binding them and leaving them for dead before pinning them gruesome love letters in the local papers. Then he disappeared, and after 20 years with no trace of him, many believe that he's gone for good. But not Grace Harper. A grocery store manager by day, at night she uses her snooping skills as part of an amateur sleuth group. So she believes that the lovelorn killer is still living in the same neighborhoods that he hunted in, and if she could figure out how he selected his victims, she will have the keys to his identity. So we also have a detective who lost someone she loved to this killer. So now she's at a murder scene with the worst kind of deja vu. Grace Harper lies bound and dead on the floor, surrounded by clues to the biggest murder case that Chicago homicide never solved. So Annalisa has a chance to make it right and heal her family, but first she has to figure out what Grace knew. How to see a killer who may be standing right in front of you. So this means tracing his steps back to her childhood, peering in dark corners she hadn't acknowledged before, and learning that despite everything the killer took, she still has so much more to lose. So This seems really intense. It's the start of a new mystery series, apparently, so that sounds really exciting. Hopefully, this will be a fantastic start. But again, I always enjoy reading books about serial killers, and I'm curious to, I think this element with Grace being, an amateur sleuth, and obviously, I guess, getting murdered, that's not great, but I think that could work really well, and, I definitely want to know what she uncovered and how the killer knew who she was. The next book that comes out August 10th is Wait For It by Jenn McKinlay. So this is an adult romance. So we've got, Annabelle, who is stuck in a dreary Boston winter, and she would like nothing more to just run away from her current life. She's not even 30, twice divorced, and has just dodged a marriage proposal from her ex-husband. When she's offered her dream job as a creative director at a cutting-edge graphic design studio in Phoenix, she jumps at the opportunities to start over. But when she arrives here, she's instantly intrigued by her anonymous landlord. Based on the cranky handwritten notes Nick leaves her, she assumes that he's an old, rich curmudgeon. But she's shocked when she finally meets him and discovers that he's her age and uses a wheelchair. Nick suffered from a stroke a year ago, and while there's no physical reason for him not to recover, he's struggling to overcome the paralyzing fear that has kept him a prisoner in his own home. Despite her promise to herself to not get involved, she finds herself irresistibly drawn to Nick, and soon she wonders if she and Nick can actually help each other to find the courage to embrace life, happiness, and true love. So I think the main thing that really drew me to this is that it takes place in Arizona, because that's where I'm from. This seems really hopeful, and I think it could be interesting representation here with Nick, and I like that Annabelle is a graphic designer. I think that's something I haven't really seen that much before. So this seems like a really positive, upbeat overall story. I'm sure we'll have some hard-hitting moments, but I am definitely excited to check this one out. The next book that comes out August 10th is You Can Never Tell by Sarah Warburton. So this is an adult thriller. So we have a museum curator who was framed for embezzlement by her best friend. So she, our museum curator, and her husband moved from New Jersey to a charming Texas suburb to escape their past. So Casey, this museum curator, makes new friends. Good friends aren't always what they seem. So she's trying to navigate this unexpectedly cutthroat social scene of her new town, and she begins to receive taunting postcards, and even worse, discovers cameras hidden in the wall of her home. One of her new friends and her husband reassure her that the cameras are just relics of the paranoid previous homeowner. Once the, cameras are removed and Casey's fears are kind of quelled, so she and Michael, her husband, make the happy discovery that they're going to be new parents. Months after the birth of their daughter, Michael makes a shocking discovery about one of their neighbor's husband's past, and I guess this neighbor woman suddenly goes missing, and so they are trying to, uncover the truth about their neighbors, and it's more terrible than anyone could have imagined. So we've got some transcripts of a chilling true crime podcast that follow the tangled threads of the drama. So this sounds really exciting to me. I really like mixed media, and that seems like we're going to definitely have this here with this true crime podcast transcript element. This is apparently inspired by the Moores murders. I don't know what that is exactly, but I'm kind of curious now. But it's exploring the twisted side of suburbia, which sounds interesting. Also, I think it's creepy that there are cameras hidden in the walls of the home. That why? I don't know. That sounds ominous though, so I'm definitely excited to check this one out. Now we'll move to August 17th, and the first book I'll talk about here is How to Kill Your Best Friend by Lexie Elliott. So I feel like this one just needs to come with a disclaimer I don't want to kill my best friend, but, I think this sounds really fun. This is an adult thriller. So we have Georgie, Lissa, and Bronwyn, who have been inseparable since dominating their college swim team. Swimming has always been an escape from their own problems, but now their shared passion has turned deadly. How can it be true that Lissa, the strongest swimmer they know, drowned? Granted, there is something strange about Canoe Cove, where she was last seen swimming off the coast of the fabulous island resort she owned with her husband. So her closest friends gather at the resort to honor her life, but Georgie and Bron can't seem to stop looking over their shoulders. Danger lurks beneath the surface of the crystal clear water, and even their luxurious private villas can't help them feel safe. As the weather turns ominous, trapping the funeral guests together on the island, nobody knows who they can trust. Lissa's death was only the beginning. So this just sounds like so much fun. There's so many things that I like here. One, I love to swim, so that's already a plot positive. We've got this island resort setting, that's going to be fabulous. And also just a storm coming in, so they're going to be trapped on the island. Yes, that is just everything that I want. If you suspected your best friend was a murderer, what would you do? I don't know. Did one of them do it? I can't wait to find out. The next book I'll talk about that comes out August 17th is The Family Plot by Megan Collins. This is another adult thriller. So we've got Dahlia, who at 26 is haunted by her upbringing. Raised in the secluded island mansion deep in the woods and kept isolated by her true crime-obsessed parents, she's unable to move beyond the disappearance of her twin brother when they were 16. After several years away and following her father's death, she returns to the house where the family makes a gruesome discovery. Buried in their father's plot is another body, her brother's, his skull split open with an axe. So Dahlia is quick to blame his murder on the serial killer who terrorized the island for decades, while the rest of her family reacts to the revelation in unsettling ways. Her brother pours his energy into creating a family memorial museum, highlighting their research into the lives of famous murder victims. Her sister forges ahead with her popular dioramas portraying crime scenes, and their mother affects a cheerfully domestic facade, becoming unrecognizable as the woman who performed murder reenactments for her children. As Dahlia grapples with her own grief and horror, she realizes that her eccentric family and the mansion itself may hold the answers to what happened to her twin. So this sounds so twisted. I thought I had seen at one point that, like, all of the kids are named after, like, murder victims or serial killers or something like that. I could be, mistaken on that, but I think that's a really interesting element. But obviously, like, again, a secluded island mansion, like, that is a perfect setting for me. Also, I'm, like, really kind of curious about this whole family that's super involved in true crime. Like, I think true crime is really interesting, but this seems to take it to a whole new level. So I just think that this has a lot of things that's going to work really well for me, and I can't wait to check it out. The next book that comes out August 17th is Cazadora by Romina Garber. So this is the sequel to Lobizona, and this is a YA urban fantasy. So this deals a lot with folklore of Argentina, which is really exciting. I really liked the first one. I thought it was very fun, so I can't wait to, see what happens here. But we've got our main character, Manu, and her friends crossing into, this mystical border into a cursed realm in Argentina. So they're looking for allies and a hiding place. They're trying to chase down leads about the Coven, which is a mythical resistance monada that may not even exist, and the Cazadores chase down leads about Manu, setting up traps to try to capture and arrest her. So just as it seems they have Manu and her friends cornered, the Coven answers their call for help. Manu discovers that they might need a revolution just as much as she does, but is she the right one to lead them? She's kind of learned about her heritage a bit. I'm trying to, not spoil things, but it's like, what happens when, the Coven learns of her secrets? Will they still protect her, or will they betray her? Lobizona was really cool. Like, again, just the different folklore was really interesting to learn about, but, we have, like, these werewolves and witches, and there's a lot of, like, gender stereotypes, I think, that kind of are associated with that. I'm pretty sure is, like, women become witches and the males become werewolves. The first book certainly kind of tackled the gender roles and also just illegal immigration, so I'm very excited to see what happens in the sequel. The next book that comes out August 17th is Redemptor by Jordan Fueco. So this is the sequel to Raybearer, and this is a YA fantasy. So I absolutely loved Raybearer, and I can't wait to see what happens here. This is like an African-inspired setting, so we have our main character who's trying to appease the sinister spirits of the dead, and so she has to kind of anoint this council of her own, coming into her full power, and then she must descend into the underworld, a sacrifice to end all future atrocities. So she's determined to survive, or at least that's what she tells her increasingly distant circle of friends. She's got these child spirits haunting her, demanding that she pay for past sins of the Empire. So with the lives of loved ones on the line, assassination attempts from unknown quarters, and a handsome new stranger she can't quite trust, she fears that the pressure may consume her. But oh no, it's a duology! Oh goodness, okay. That kind of makes me sad because I want more books in this world, but at the same time, duologies are nice. Oh goodness. Anyway, so she has to decide whether to die for justice or live for it. So I just absolutely cannot wait for this. I loved Raybearer again. I think it had a lot of really cool magic. There's definitely a found family type of aspect to it. There was a lot of diversity, a lot of really great representation here. I just can't wait to see, what happens here and how this story concludes. The next book that comes out August 17th is Battle Royal by Lucy Parker. So I have actually read an arc of this over the past weekend, and, you'll see a review of that in my next weekly update, but this was so much fun. This is an adult romance, and it's kind of we've got a lot of things going on here, but it's great British bake-off, but also royals and enemies to lovers romance. It was a lot of fun. So 4 years ago, Sylvie charmed the world as a contestant on the hit baking show Operation Cake. Her ingenious creations captivated viewers and intrigued all but one of the judges, Dominic. When her unicorn cake went spectacularly sideways, Dominic was quick to vote her off the show. And since then, Sylvie has used her fame to fulfill her dream of opening a bakery. So she's captured the attention of the Operation Cake producers and a princess. So we've got Dominic, who is the king's favorite baker. He runs his bakery, which is a veritable British institution. He's brilliant, talented, and hardworking, and also a grouch. So learning that Sylvie will be joining him on the Operation Cake judging panel is enough to make the famously dour baker even more grim. Then they learn that they will be fighting for the once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to bake a cake for the upcoming wedding of Princess Rose. They fight to be on top, and it's like the bride adores Sylvie's quirky style, the palace wants Dominic's classic perfection. In this royal battle, can there be room for two? So I think this was really fun. There were a lot of elements that I really liked. The baking competition was really exciting. I thought that was really fun, and I feel like, fans of the Great British Bake Off will really enjoy that. Enemies to lovers romance was really well done. Sylvie was just such a delight to read, and of course there's like this Grump Sunshine dynamic, which was so cute, and then, oh god, just like involving the royals was really interesting. I think there were a lot of, fantastic discussions there, but I would definitely recommend picking this up, and you can check out my review in my next weekly update. Now we'll move to August 24th, and the first book I'll talk about here is The Second Rebel by Lyndon A. Lewis. So this is the sequel to The First Sister, which I read last year, I think, and enjoyed. This is an adult sci-fi book. Astrid is trying to bring down the sisterhood from within. So she's trying to confront and challenge the aunts who run this sort of like religious institution, but she discovers that the business of politics is far deadlier than she could have imagined. We have, on an outlaw colony station in space, Hero, who's trying to bring a dangerous ally into the rebellion. Whispers of a digital woman fuel Hero's search, but they are not the only person looking for this link to the mysterious race of synthetics. Then we have Leto, who continues to grow into his role as a lead revolutionary, and he's tasked with rescuing an Aster operative from deep within an Ikari prison. With danger around every corner, Leto and his partner and the newly freed operative must flee in order to keep dangerous secrets out of enemy hands. Back on Venus, Leto's sister must carry on after her brother's disappearance and an accusation of treason. So I guess she is trying to keep her nose clean until an Aster revolutionary shows up with news about her brother's fate and an opportunity to join the fight. So this was, at least with the first sister, it was a really interesting world. There was some crazy neurotechnology, and I think, we had several interesting characters to follow. I particularly liked following the first sister. Hero was interesting. They are just, very much their own person and stands up for what's right. Definitely left off the first sister wanting to know more about this world and this plot, so I can't wait to see how this story continues. The next book that comes out August 24th is Burden Falls by Kat Ellis. So this is a YA thriller, I think, / horror, I'm not exactly sure, but so we have the town of Burden Falls that drips with superstition. We've got rumors of its cursed waterfall. There's Ed-eyed Sadie, the disturbing specter who haunts it. We have Ava, who grew up right next to the falls, and since a horrific accident killed her parents a year ago, she's been plagued with nightmares in which this Sadie, the specter, comes calling. Nightmares so chilling, Ava feels as if she'll never wake up. But when someone close to Ava is brutally murdered and she's the primary suspect, she begins to wonder if the stories might be more than legends, and if the ghost haunting her dreams might be terrifyingly real. Whatever secrets Burden Falls is hiding, there's a killer on the loose with a vendetta against the Thorns. So that sounds so good. So I read Harold Lake either earlier this year or last year and enjoyed it. This also pitches Riverdale meets Stephen King, which is like, yes, definitely love that. I love Riverdale, so, I think that's a big draw for me here, but it definitely seems like we have this creepy setting. Also, like, is this specter real? I don't know, but that's kind of odd to be dreaming about it. I'm very curious about, like, who is actually murdering all of these people near Ava. So this sounds like a really fun, creepy thriller / horror, and I can't wait to check it out. So now we move to August 31st, and the first book I'll talk about here is The Witchhaven by Sasha Payton Smith. So this is YA fantasy. I think this is urban fantasy, actually. So in 1911 New York City, we have 17-year-old Frances, who spends her days as a seamstress, mourning the mysterious death of her brother months prior. So everything changes when she's attacked, and a man ends up dead at her feet. His sister's in his neck, and she can't explain how they got there. Before she can be condemned as a murderess, two cape-wearing nurses arrive to inform her that she's deathly ill and order to report to this sanitarium. But she finds that it's not actually a sanitarium, it's a school for witches. So within the glittering walls of this place, Frances finds the sisterhood she craves, but the headmistress warns Frances that magic is dangerous. She has no interest in the small, safe magic of her school, and is instead enchanted by Finn, who's a boy with magic who appears in her dreams and tells her that he can teach her if she's, been craving everything she's been craving to learn, lessons that may bring her closer to discovering what truly happened to her brother. Frances's newfound power attracts the attention of the leader of an ancient order who yearns for magical control of Manhattan, and he'll stop at nothing to have Frances at his side. So Frances is going to have to choose what matters more. Justice for her murdered brother, her growing feelings for Finn, or the safety of her city and fellow witches. What price would she pay for power, and what if the truth is more terrible than she could have imagined? So this sounds really appealing. Again, I always love urban fantasy. I like that it's kind of got this historical setting. I think that's exciting. I like that we have a school for witches disguised as a sanitarium. That's a really interesting setting. I definitely want to know more about this magic and kind of, what we've got going on here. Who is Finn? Is he dangerous? Is he Fae? I don't know. That's just like a complete wild guess. Could be completely off about that. So finally, the last book I'll talk about today also comes out August 30th, and that's Dark and Shallow Lies by Jenny Meyer-Stain. This is a YA supernatural thriller, I believe. So we're in Louisiana in a tiny town where 17-year-old Gray spends her summers. This town is the self-proclaimed psychic capital of the world, and the place where Alora, Gray's best friend, disappeared 6 months earlier. Gray can't believe that Alora vanished into thin air any more than she can believe that nobody in a town full of psychics knows what happened. But as she digs into the night that Alora went missing, she begins to realize that everyone in town is hiding something. Her grandmother, Honey, her childhood crush, Heart, and even her late mother, whose secrets continue to call to Gray from beyond the grave. When a mysterious stranger emerges from the bayou, he's a stormy-eyed boy with links to Alora and the town's bloody history, Gray realizes that the past of this town is far more present and dangerous than she ever understood. Suddenly, she doesn't know who she can trust. In a town where secrets lurk just below the surface and where a murderer is on the loose, nobody can be presumed innocent, and the dark and shallow lies may just rip the town apart. So this sounds really exciting. It does say that magic festers beneath the surface of the swamp like water rot, so that's a fun sentence. But I like the setting in Louisiana and like the bayou. That is super cool. I don't tend to see that setting all that often. I'm kind of curious, are these psychics actually psychic, or are they, are they real? Are they just pretending to be psychic? I don't know. Secrets in this small town sound really cool, and certainly with everybody having something to hide, that seems ominous. Sounds like it'll be a really fun, atmospheric type read. So those are all the books that I'm going to focus on today. Like I said, I'll leave all of the books, that I talked about today, the arcs that I've read, and the other books that I'm considering listed in the description, so you can check that out. So let me know in the comments if you think you might pick up any of these books. And for your question of the day, are there any other August releases that you're excited about? I do have a Discord channel, and if you want to join that, the link's in the description below. I hope you're all having an excellent day and are reading something awesome. If you enjoyed this video, feel free to give it a big thumbs up, as that would certainly help me out. But with that, I think I'm going to wrap it up here and see you in the next one.